Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order. This is the meeting of June the 12th. It's a little right about 1 o'clock. And first thing we're going to have is the Pledge of Allegiance. And Glenn Sampson, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Garber, is there any reports out of closed session?
Yes, sir, there is. The board gave direction to real estate negotiators with regard to some of the western farmlands. In addition, the board took action in closed session to extend the tolling agreement between IID and the Torres Martinez Indian tribe to toll any real property claims related to the IID's maintenance of the L transmission line on the tribe's property. The tolling agreement as extended would remain in place from November 2004 until such time as the parties successfully negotiate a right-of-way agreement or choose to end the tolling agreement.
All right, thank you, Mr. Garber. We're now going to go for the approval of the order of the agenda items. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
President Minville?
Yes.
If the board would indulge me, I'd like to pull item number 20. It should have appeared as info, and in any event, we'd like it to run through the Oversight Committee for bidding and procurement.
All right, thank you very much. That action item number 20 on page 185 has been pulled. Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, please vote. All right, thank you. We're going to move on to public comments. So if anybody has any public comments, please step to the podium, state your name for the record, and you have 5 minutes. And there's a clock over here to the be to your left. Okay, seeing none. Well, do you have a? Go ahead.
My name is Paul Kovich. I'm a resident of Imperial, California, and I have a prepared statement that I'd like to read to this board. At some point in time, Anthony Sanchez will have his day in court and may or not be found guilty of felony child abuse. But on the face value, this video is compelling and damning in nature and has not been ignored by law enforcement, the public, and hopefully not by the board members of the IID. Anthony Sanchez was an elected official of the IID, as all board members are, and as such are held to a higher standard. As IID board members, you wield great power, and with great power, there's a need for great self-restraint when it comes to your actions, both publicly and privately. Anthony Sanchez failed dismally, and when it came to this restraint. I hope this trend in behavior is just an isolated incident by one board member and not the tip of the iceberg. This board as a whole has a moral responsibility to its ratepayers and the employees of the IID. And I would hope that if Anthony Sanchez had not submitted his resignation in a timely fashion, that this board would have demanded it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Ramos?
Yes, my name is Tony Ramos, a Central resident. I agree with what this gentleman said. On the other hand, ladies and gentlemen, what do you do about an issue where the victim was taken care of, he was safeguarded, Mr. Sanchez was arrested, he's going to court, he's got his day in court. There's a process, a legal process in America where people are innocent until proven guilty. As an ex-probation officer, I saw many cases like this. But what do you do when this individual, Mr. Sanchez, goes home and finds notes and derogatory remarks in his house, and him and his family can't live there no more? What do you do? What does it say about the community? Paul in the Bible killed Christians, and God asked him when he was in the wilderness to come in and help him. God forgave him. And Mr. Sanchez will go through the same thing. I'm not taking sides on this. I'm just saying, Where is the community when they berate, they put him down, the family, everybody? What kind of justice do we have here? Are we that mean of a community here that we don't allow the process to go through? I agree with what this gentleman said. It's true. But at the same time, we have to be a law-abiding and conscious people to forgive. You know, right now, this is a hot issue. It's a political issue, too. And nobody's getting anything out of it by ramming the family and Mr. Sanchez. I know the father and mother, good people, believe me. This could happen to anyone. And as an ex-Air Force veteran, served my country 66 or 70, I've always been the side law enforcement, and I don't condone this. You know, it's just unfortunate. But let's take a step back and let the process handle itself. Let's not put him down. Let's not keep sending messages, blogs, awful things that I've seen. You know, and what does that say for this community? That we're that way? We're not. And I hope that the few that are doing this will also take a step back and at least not say nothing. And like I said, let the legal process go through. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ramos. Anybody else? Okay, I see none. I will bring it back to the board. Comments from the board. We'll start with Director Hanks.
Yeah, I have a statement I'd like to. Wait a minute. I have a statement I'd like to read. A two-horse team working together can pull their own weight and the weight of their interaction. This is the power of teamwork that even horses recognize. Last week, the voters of the Imperial Irrigation District, our bosses, sent us board members a clear message. Work together for the common good. In District 2, over 68% voted for someone other than the incumbent. District 4, over 62% so voted. Voters made it clear. They want us to open up to them the process of how we conduct the public's business. Voters want our meetings to be open. They want our public records to be available. And they want an end to backroom deals. Voters want to be part of the team. They want to use their combined power to move forward the unfinished agenda of the IID. We know the voters see the unfairness of their shouldering the restoration and mitigation costs of the QSA, caused by the decision to transfer our water to more unrestrained real estate development projects far away from the Imperial Valley. Voters do not want us to squander the work product of earlier generations of hardworking IID members, employees, and leaders. The voters want us to make certain that contracts we award conform to public contracting laws. They want us to make sure we do not give away our assets to privately owned utility companies. In response to the clear message voters sent us a week ago, I call upon my fellow board members to commit to work together, to open up to the public how we make decisions, to include the public in our decision making, and to focus on how we serve the long-term best interests of the IID. With this in mind, I propose we take immediate action to accomplish the following goals. Let us adopt new meeting rules that better protect the public's right to know how we make decisions, when we make decisions, and provide the public with more meaningful opportunity to participate in the decision-making process. 2, let us adopt new rules that increase and improve the right of the public to timely access our public records. 3, let us hold public meetings in the cities within the IID boundaries in order to involve the public in reforming the QSA. 4, let us hold a joint meeting with the San Diego County Water Authority to discuss what San Diego can and should do to improve its water independence. These are just the beginning points of the agenda we can move if we come together and, of course, work together as a team. Let us begin. Thank you.
Okay, Director Desert.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, these are very busy times for the IID, especially now with an open board seat. Nobody knows how busy it is better than General Manager Kelly. Been extremely busy with this certain situation that came up past week this past week, and all the phone calls from the public, that went to the board members, and then those board members contacting Mr. Kelly. He's shown tremendous poise and leadership, and I thank him for the job he's done. The Board of Supervisors are very busy today also, figuring out which direction to go and how we're going to proceed to replace this board seat. Ideally, I see this as a time where the Board of Supervisors and the IID Board of Directors can communicate better and get together and make this a smooth process and bring those relationships closer to home, closer together to resolve those issues that divide us, specifically the QSA. It's also an opportunity for this 4-member board at this time until we replace that 5th seat for us to show leadership and get along, show that direction, consensus, and listen. Listen to one another, listen to the public, and do what's best for the IID and the public. Follow those proper business models, those proper concerns for an irrigation district, which we are, an irrigation district that happens to be in the power generation and transmission business. An irrigation district whose budget is approximately 1/3 of the power budget. But we are that irrigation district. We always will be. Thank you, and I ask you to pray for all of us and pray for Mr. Sanchez. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Desert. Director Mendoza.
I also commit to work with my fellow board members, but not at the expense of damaging the IID. This QSA is a valid contract. I didn't vote for it when it came before the previous board, but I'm not going to be the one, and I will not allow the IID to be the one to blow it up. To blow it up would mean additional burden on the IID, water taken away by the feds, millions of dollars spent in litigation, and I will not that allow to happen, not on my watch. And yes, this board, a 4-member board, we must work together, but I will never, ever put the IID at risk. Never. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Director Mendoza. My only comments is that we have very trying times that we're faced with one director missing. So I agree that we need to work together for the good of the people and the public. We have a lot of items that we're faced with, both on the water and the energy side. So hopefully we can all come together and make the best possible that we can of it for the people that elect us to this office. And that's my comments. Director, Mr. Kelly.
President Menville, members of the board, I debated whether or not to put anything on the record. I do want to say that as a 4-person board, however we came to be in this situation, that my hope is that middle area in which compromise is possible becomes larger, and that the 4 board members, in the spirit of compromise and conscience, work toward that end. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Garber?
No comments, Mr. President.
Right. Thank you. Okay, what we're going to do now before we go into consent, we have an action item dealing with the Director Sanchez, so we're going to take that now. And Mr. Garber, would you handle that, please?
Yes, sir. This supplemental item was created after Mr. Sanchez resigned his position in District 5 on Saturday. It's essentially 2 parts. The action item is a fairly straightforward item, and it suggests and recommends that the board take action to accept Mr. Sanchez's resignation so that it's clear that the resignation is effective. And the resignation should be effective when it was communicated by Mr. Sanchez's attorney, which would be June 9th. I would suggest that we do that first, then we can go ahead and talk about the legal and practical issues that have been created by the resignation, if that's okay with the board.
Okay, that's fine. Is there a motion to accept this resignation?
Now, I'll make a motion that we accept his resignation, that we also notify the Imperial County that there is a vacancy.
Yes.
And I will have another recommendation following this one. Thank you.
I'll second that.
Okay. Please vote. All right, thank you. Did you have something else, Director Hanks?
Well,
Yes.
do you want to wait until
I'll wait until
Okay.
you...
The next issue is to discuss with the board the legal ramifications of the resignation. And if I can you turn that on and just start the... I'm going to get this started, but I asked Joanna Smith to make a presentation. It gets a little more complicated than I think members of the board and public are anticipating. The first step is Water Code Section 22849. That code section is within the irrigation district law in a specific detailed section that only addresses irrigation districts that cover more than 500,000 acres, which is IID. And that code section is in two parts. And it's the starting point for the analysis of how this vacancy would be filled. The first part states that the Board of Supervisors of the Office of the County, there's a typo in the code section, shall fill by appointment vacancies in the Office of Directors, provided that any such appointed director shall be required to run for election in the next succeeding general district election. So what that provides essentially is option one. Option one is that the county board can fill the appointment. The person that the county board appoints must run in the next general election. Now, what the definition is of general election is a fairly complicated issue, which we're going to discuss in a moment. But that's the first option, that the county makes an appointment. And at that point, the question is, when would that person run for election? The second option is, if within 60 days after a vacancy on the board of directors occurs, the Board of Supervisors has failed to fill such vacancy, a special election may be called by the Board of Directors and held in the division affected for the purpose of filling such vacancy. In the event there are more than two candidates in such special election, only a plurality will be required for election. The candidate elected at such special election shall fill the unexpired term of the vacating director. This would be the other option. If the county board does not, for whatever reason, fill the vacancy within 60 days, then a special election can be called. And in that special election, the person who would fill the vacancy can be elected. The special election would not be a regular election in which there'd be a primary and a runoff term. And if there are more than one board members running, a plurality of board members would determine who the person who got the seat was. The candidates. Now, again, when that special election would take place and how that special election would be set is another issue. So I'm going to pass this on to Joanna, and I'm going to go ahead and move the PowerPoint or the projection down for her. But what we need to discuss, and it's going to take a few minutes, and you need to be patient, is the various code sections and laws that determine when the election would take place and what the timing is and what the options are.
Okay, so as Jeff said, this is complicated, so we're gonna lay it out and try to explain it as simply as possible, but we're going to be dealing with a lot of elections and a lot of dates. So this is the first paragraph. This is the situation where the Board of Supervisors appoint a person to fill the vacancy. And the key part to this is that through that appointment, how long will that person be in this office? And then secondly, that person needs to run for election at the next general election. So when will that occur also determines that length of the appointment. So we're going to start generally with the statewide general election, and that's what the public and most people are familiar with, which is your November election on even numbered years. The next statewide general election is November 6th of this year. We also have the statewide direct primary election, and that's in June of even numbered years, which we just had. So the next one will be June 3rd, 2014, 2 years from now. Then we have the general district election, and we have a default date for general district elections, which is November of odd number years. So it's different the other year. The odd is the general district elections. Statewide general election is even numbered years. However, you can modify that default general district election, which is the district election for IID, and you can modify that to be occurring on the statewide direct primary election and move it to June. So move it from November of odd number years to June of even numbered years. That's where we are today. We're on that schedule today. We do have that modification. So the next modified general district election, the next scheduled general district election for IID is June 3rd, 2014, 2 years from now. So
The board took action
yes.
in 1977,
So
modified from the schedule.
yeah, so this is how we have moved from the default general district election in November of odd number years to the primary dates in June of even number years. It was done in 1977 by motion of the board. So under the current schedule, June 3rd, 2014 is the next election, and that provides for the vacancy. The appointment in the vacancy would be for 2 years up until June 3rd, 2014 on today's schedule. So some things to note in this. The general district election date can be changed. So as we have done, it has been changed. The two options are the default, which is in November of odd numbered years or June of even numbered years. This can be set by resolution, so it can be changed to where it is now, but it also can be changed back to the default date in November by a resolution that is filed with the county clerk 90 days before the next district general election, the default district general election, which would be November 5th, 2013, and also 90 days before the next statewide direct primary election, June 3rd, 2014. So you have much time to where that 90 days wouldn't be issue. Today, the current general district election is scheduled on the statewide direct primary election dates, and that's per the 1977 motion. So this puts you into two situations. There's two possible terms for an appointee. One term would be keeping the status quo. It would be under the current schedule. And this is not for an action. This is just for understanding that these are the two possibilities for the person being appointed to the position. Under the status quo, the next general district election is on June 3rd, 2014. So that person, the appointee, would be in the office until that time, and then would have to run for that general district election on June 3rd, 2014. And those that director, along with the other positions up at that time, would take office on the first Friday, or if it's a runoff, the second Friday of December 2014. The second situation is under the modified schedule, which is really going to the default general district elections date. The next general district election date is November 5th, 2013. And then the next elected directors, including that person that would have to run for office, whichever person is elected would take office in December of 2013 under that scenario. So that's the first scenario. The second one is the second paragraph that goes towards the situation that the board of director or the board of supervisors does not fill the vacancy by appointment. And in that situation, 60 days after the vacancy, they don't appoint, IID can call a special election. The 60 days in this situation, because the resignation is effective June 9th, 2012, 60 days from now, or from that day, is August 8th, 2012. And that's key because that affects some of the timing for the special election. So special elections are on any established election date. So there are multiple dates that special elections can occur. Established election dates include the second Tuesday of April in even numbered years, the first Tuesday after the first Monday in March of odd numbered years, and then the first Tuesday after the first Monday in June every year, which is also falls in line with your primary elections in even numbered years. And then your first Tuesday after the first Monday in November of every year, which also falls in line with your statewide general election on even numbered years. So your next two election dates that you could have a special election are November 6th, 2012 and March 5th, 2013. So in looking at those, your timing is key because the 60 days is August 8th. So to do the November 6, 2012 day as a special election, you actually have to start that process before that 60 days is up. And that's July 3rd, 2012. That's the very first step in the process, which is to notify the county registrar of the election. It's actually July 4th, but that's a holiday, so we go one day before. And that is 125 days before the special election would occur. And then your next step is the filing of the candidate nomination forms, which would begin July 16th and end August 10th. And that's 88 to 113 days out from the election. If we go to March 5th, 2013, then it's October 31st, 2012 for the first step, which is the notice of the election. And then your filing time is November 9th, 2012 to December 7th, 2012.
Again, just to recap, there's two options based on the two paragraphs of the
Yep.
code section.
But Jeff, you need to speak into the mic, please.
The first option is the county makes the appointment, in which case, the real issue is how long does that appointed director serve? I believe it's the county's position, and the county made a presentation today, and we've been discussing this with the county, that it's their position that that person would serve for 2 years until
June 3rd, 2014.
And we agree with that analysis. The district could take action to change that date, but it would have repercussions on current board members. We could change the date in which the election is, just like we changed at the time we have done now. Remember, we're not on the official state schedule, or we're not on the official district schedule, we're on the state schedule. And so I'm not sure that we recommend doing that, and I believe it would actually take a few months off of current district terms if we did that. The alternative is if the county fails to make an appointment, the district can call a special election. What's a problem about that is that if we wait the 60 days, there will be not enough time to schedule the special election. So
For the November
election. I don't know, and we may have to look at this issue longer, if the county were to determine that it did not intend to make an appointment and notify us ahead of time, whether we would have to wait till the end of that 60-day timing before notifying the registrar of the special election, or whether we could do that in advance, in which case we could arrange the special election for November. So, as you can see, there are some complexities here. The county has evaluated option one, and their analysis is identical to ours. The county really hasn't evaluated option two, because I think there was an assumption, at least in the preliminary evaluation, that there was going to be an appointment made. So I don't know what their analysis of option two is, and if given the time, we would certainly sit down with the county and try to figure that out. We have talked to the county council and deputy county council. We are in touch with them, and we're working together on this.
Okay, do you have anything else, Mr. Garber?
No, but I suspect there's going to be some discussion and questions.
Okay, is there a discussion from the board?
Yes, I would like to know if the Board of Supervisors elected to forbear their authority to appoint because of the upcoming election, is it possible to have a special election for Division 5 at the November election?
The issue there is that Section 22849 says if within 60 days, and I read that to be if something has happened within any time during the 60 days, the county fails to make an appointment, then the district, the irrigation district, can call a special election. So even if the county tells us before the 60 days passes, look, we're not going to make an appointment, the question is, under that code section, do we have the legal right to jump ahead and contact the registrar and schedule the special election before the 60 days has passed? That's an issue that we're not thoroughly clear on. And if that would happen, then yes, we could do it. If the county would I don't think the county has the right to waive the 60 days, so the question is whether we have to wait until the 60 days expires before we have the right to schedule the special election. If that were the case, that we don't have to wait, then yes, sir, we could do that.
I bring that up for a couple of reasons. One, there are some issues between the two agencies, some legal issues. And I think it makes it very awkward for maybe both parties to participate in an appointment, based on that consideration. And then the second, normally an appointment like that is to prevent a special election, the cost of a special election, or because the end of the term is coming up and there may not be an election prior to that. So I'm thinking in terms of, because of the positions between the litigation issues and maybe the desire not to bring that as a focal point and extra problems to us, that they might be willing to forbear that issue. And then the second thing is, because of the proximity of the election, I feel personally strongly that the public has a right to select who their representative is going to be. And for those two reasons, I would ask this board to, knowing full well that the Board of Supervisors has the authority to make the decision, but I would ask this board to take a position that we ask them to consider that.
Director Hanks, I have had that conversation with Mr. Cordova. He made no warranties as to how the Board of Supervisors would decide on this issue. And I understand that the board this morning impaneled a committee to make a recommendation. But I do think that he agreed with my assessment that there's a clear and compelling public interest in not only avoiding the expense of a standalone special election, but in allowing the voters to elect their representative. So if the county were to agree to refrain from making an appointment, and it were possible legally to consolidate this special election with the November general election, I believe that the public interest would be much better served.
I understand they probably had some of their own reasons why they may want to do it one way or the other. And one of it is the fact that, with a four-member board, it's really going to compel us to do some teamwork to keep this operation flowing and afloat. So I can understand where they have that concern. But I think the over-compelling interest for the good of this whole community, because basically we serve the same people, that I would ask them to at least consider those points.
Okay. Director Desert, you have any comments?
Very good comments. Thank you. Jim?
Any comments, Dr. Mendoza?
Just direct Mr. Kelly to keep in close contact with the county and try to work something out where we don't have to wait till another year or so. My preference is to have the voters decide in November of this year. But we need to work closely with the county so they know exactly where we're coming from. And
the decision by your former peer to step down was one that only he could make, and it was between him and the voters that elected him. Those same voters ought to have the opportunity to name his successor. And I know that the legal people are speaking with their counterparts at the county. I think that the takeaway from your meeting today, should the board come down on the side of what Director Hanks is advocating should be a letter that you send to the county right away, basically articulating that position.
Yeah, because if they're not going to do it that way, if they're going to go ahead, I'm in agreement with Director Mendoza that we can't wait for a year or longer for to have the fifth member seated. So if they're in disagreement with it, then do what they have to do and let's get the show on the road.
Exactly.
Would the board's view of this change if we were unable to schedule the special election for November, or would it be essentially the same if we could schedule at the next available time, which might be in the spring, for example?
I think
Mr.
that's
Garber,
too much
shoot for November 2012.
Ma'am, it's a legal issue. It's not my choice, and I'm
let's
just
shoot
trying
for
to make
that.
sure the board's fully prepared.
I'm in agreement with, if it's not possible at the regular election in November, then have them exercise their authority.
I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, I have a couple of comments. I think being in the election cycle, we've got about 4.5 months left to November the 6th, so I think it's very important that the County Board of Supervisors allow the public to elect Division 5 seat. Therefore, I think they should get moving, and working with you, General Manager, and our council and their people to decide, make a decision on what to do so that we can let the public on November the 6th decide who sits in the Division 5 seat. That's where I'm coming from. Anybody in the public have any comments, or is this board through commenting? Do you want to hear from the public?
Mr. Kelly, you are going to be the designated one. You and Mr. Garber will be communicating with the county.
I got a call from Ralph Cordova yesterday just alerting me that this would be agendized on the county's agenda. I expect to speak with him tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Gary.
Got public comment.
Good afternoon, one and all. Mike Aguirre. Might I suggest that you bring forth a formal motion and adopt the motion as a expression of the will? And of course, it hasn't been noticed for today, but I think you should do
Are you
that.
asking us to violate the Brown Act?
No. You got me on that
You
one.
of all people?
You got me on that one. So you can't do that today, as of today. But let me just say that there are a number of different provisions of law that make this very complicated, because other kinds of districts under the Water Code, in fact, enjoy.
Mr. Gary, you need to speak into the mic.
Okay, other districts, other irrigation districts, and special districts enjoy the authority to make this appointment themselves. I'm not saying that these laws particularly apply, but the spirit of these laws apply, and what these laws, more recent laws, provide for is for the IID type boards to have the first crack at deciding whether to appoint or whether to have an election, and then and only then does the Board of Supervisors intervene. You do have a unique situation because there is a conflict, and a serious one, between the Board of Supervisors and the board over pending litigation, and that's an issue that is a fair issue. But if you were to schedule on an emergency basis a resolution, and I think you are coming back on Thursday, if I'm not mistaken, but if you can schedule that appropriately under the Brown Act, and then pass it as a formal resolution with your able counsel's analysis of why, as a practical matter, it's appropriate. Once the board decides that, if they were to decide we're not going to appoint, if they make that decision, they can call for an election. They can themselves call for an election, not formally, but they can say they think there should be an election, and then it reverts back to you. If once they decide not to appoint, it reverts back to you anyway. But my point being is that you should have a formal resolution with proper whereas clauses, with the sentiment of, because it says it's unanimous sentiment, laying out the reasons why you're asking them to please exercise their discretion, as you have indicated, and then make that the sense of your board, and then that can go to them, and in a very polite way that can be presented by Mr. Kelly at their next meeting, or perhaps even with the committee that they've appointed, to see if you can get that dialogue started. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Scaroni.
Mr. Aguirre, I'm not sure who you're working for today, but I'm about ready to fire you. So,
Didn't he say at one time he represented himself and nobody else?
oh, that's right. I got a speeding ticket. I forgot. I'm confused. I got a speeding ticket. He's representing me.
Go on.
He's representing me on a speeding ticket. Mrs. Mendoza, your wit and charm and beauty have totally distracted my train of thought here. So I've got to get my wits back about me. Well, first of all, I was assured by the Board of Supervisors and the staff down there that I would be the appointee if they appoint. So with that being said, I have brought gifts here for Mr. Garber and Mr. Kelly. But I need you guys to let me know whether you want the Kindle edition or the soft copy. But anyway, things are going to change here at the district, folks. And Jim, in all due respect, we need to get about the people's business. This organization has been dysfunctional long enough. This organization has operated in an unlawful manner for too long. And yes, I believe in the will of the people. And I'm sure Mr. Kelly is hoping that this will go to an election, so then hopefully he'll get a candidate. We continue with this 3-2 dysfunction we've had that is anti to the benefit of Imperial County, and Mr. Kelly will not have, longer than sooner will have to find a new job. So, Jim, I don't agree with you. I think we need to let the Board of Soups appoint. I hope they appoint. And I think we need to get somebody in here that's not a politician. We need to get somebody in here that they will get about the people's business. We will stop the dysfunction that's going on here. We'll stop the unlawful activities. We'll fix this QSA, which is an absolute financial nightmare around our neck. I respect the lady's position that we don't want to blow the QSA up, but we also don't want
The lady has a name. It's Ms. Mendoza.
I'm trying to be really nice and respectful, Miss Mendoza. I'm sorry. I'll try better. I am from Heber. Emily Post has not set up a post there yet, and so I got to get my etiquette online. But I'm sorry, Mrs. Mendoza. Is it Miss or Miss?
Ms.
Ms?
Yes.
Ms. Okay. Your beauty and your wit has just thrown me completely off track here. What I was going to say, so I got to reclaim my thoughts. Anyway. We need to get back to the people's business here. There's some serious problems that have been created by this 3-2 dysfunction of the last 8 years. And Jim, I would think you, if anybody, would be tired of being locked out, by being stonewalled by Mr. Garber on legal opinions and excluding you from the process, from the many Brown Act violations, from the political maneuverings of Mr. Menville of stopping grant money for the All-American Canal that probably cost lives. I would think you'd be tired of that. And yes, I believe the people will get their say. But one other comment that came up, and I'll close with this, is that this issue of the appointee, if it's an appointee, must run. Mr. Rood, I thought very well qualified that. You can't make somebody run for office. So I think that may be a semantics game that maybe Mr. Garber should talk to Mr. Rood how he explained that to his board, because that question came up. They go, you mean we have to appoint someone who promises to run? I mean, I don't think constitutionally you can make somebody run if you appoint them. But Mr. Rood was posed with that question. I don't want to speak for him, and maybe Mr. Garber can get some clarity on that whoever the appointee, I don't believe, has the obligation to run. And maybe we need someone who just wants to come in for 2 years and clean up this dysfunctional rat's nest we got here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. Anybody else with public comments on this issue? Mr. Ramos.
My name is Tony Ramos, a Central resident. Stella, today, neither your charm or wit forgot my memory. It was Scaroni's charm and wit that took me by surprise. And, me and Steve go back a long ways, even though we never had coffee together, and we know each other, and I respect what he says. I do believe that he stands here and says good things. But the other thing, I think he misleads the people when he says that the board is dysfunctional. I applaud you, Mr. Hanks, in saying that let this go to the people. Mr. Sanchez was selected by the people. It should go back to the people. This morning at the Board of Supervisors, Mike Kelly, of all people, appointing himself as kind of the head guy, him and Wyatt, to come back next week to advise what to do. And I had that cartoon of the robot that came out on Sunday in the newspaper where it says Colab and Ivy First was a robot. And a robot is insensitive to the people's feelings. It's cold. Whatever input you put in, that's what it'll do. And that's the way I think these people with Colab and Ivy First are. And there's a handful, not all of them are that way. Not all the people, but to me, putting Mike in charge of that committee is, like I said before, like having Colonel Sanders babysit your chickens. They're going to become barbecue or a original recipe. And to me, Mike shouldn't have. I told me, Mike, there's a conflict right there. You shouldn't be going there. I said, because you know why? Because Jimmy Duggins is your neighbor. You socialize with him. You go fishing with him in Mexico. And to me, that's a conflict. Right away, by Mike doing that, it's almost like saying that they're going to appoint somebody on their side instead of my side. And the other thing, too, the board wanted to consider me being appointed, besides Scaroni. So get that. Who do you want, me or Scaroni? None of us. None of us. That way, it's fair to everybody. It's a side joke, but that way, it's fair to everybody. But that's where it's at right now. Do we want somebody like me that speaks for the board, Stella and JP, or do we want somebody like Scaroni that speaks for the robot and Ivy First? And to me, it's better to let it go to the people. What Mr. Sanchez is going through, I said before, let him be. The process and the criminal process is going through, and we should separate what happened to him in politics and let the people decide what to do. And I applaud you, Mr. Hanks. Don't let them bully you around. You're still Hanks, and you're the person that was a superintendent of schools before, and I'm proud that you did that. And Mr. Aguirre, I'm glad you said that too. So if they fire you, so what? You'll get a job somewhere else. In fact, I may hire you myself. So my budget is not over $1,000, so you got to work with me. So what I'm saying to people is that don't let bullies come here and bully you. The QSA was done it because Mr. Kuhn voted for it back in 2003 or 2004 when they made the water charge, and now we have to accept it. We have to defend it. There's nothing wrong with that, And I'm glad we got people like Stella and JP on the board. And really, there's a lot of good things in you too, Mr. Hanks. There's a lot of good things in you too. But like you say, you want to work together. Let's start working together. And what you did today is a sign that we want to work together. Let the people decide, and let this go to election. And I'm going to be on Mike's butt next week. I'm going to tell him he shouldn't be voting on this. And we'll see what happens. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ramos. Anybody else want to speak on this issue? Step up to the podium. Okay. Lindsay, were you going to say something? Okay, thank you. She's heading for the door. Okay, we're going to move on to consent. And
do we need a motion on that?
I don't think you need to motion, but I think what you're doing is making direction. I think you have. I just checked with Kevin, but just to make sure it's clear, I think the direction of the board is that Mr. Kelly and I are to work with the county and try to impress upon the county the board's desire that the county refrain from making an appointment and allow the district to set a special election so that the next board member can be voted in by the electorate. Is that correct?
yes.
And
Wait a minute. Are you guys doing a motion?
No, they're not, because it wasn't agendized. I think they're giving us direction. I think if they want to do a motion, we would have to come back.
Jeff, because you and Kevin are trying to save your jobs. That's not the. I heard some comments. I didn't hear direction.
Well, that's why I'm asking the board to tell me if I'm correct. Mr. Scaroni, can I finish and then you can have your turn?
Stand down, Steve, please.
That's why I'm asking the board. If what I'm saying is incorrect, please tell me what's correct.
Mr. Garber, I'm in favor of the board making an appointment immediately.
Okay, and you're asking Mr. Kelly and I to try to communicate that and work with the county if that's possible. Is that correct?
I'll also be making that communication to the Board of Supervisors.
Okay, fine.
Okay, are you saying that we can't make a motion because it's not agendized? Is that what you're saying?
You can give direction. We could certainly set up a special meeting on Thursday when you're going to be meeting in closed session anyhow if you'd like to make a motion.
Yeah, we can do a motion on Thursday.
Well, I would like to see the resolution with the whereases and so forth that Mr. Gary mentioned.
That's fine. We can do that.
And take formal action at that meeting with that.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I'd like that also, please. You okay with that, Stella?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. We'll move on to, we have one item on consent.
Move to approve.
That's been,
Second.
okay, please vote. All right, thank you. We're going to move on to item number 2, information, water general matters. Mr. Silva?
The amount of water that's signed up for fouling is up to about 160, excuse me, 160,000 acre feet. We may get up to about 170. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Okay, is there any questions for Mr. Silva on any water matters?
Mr. Silva, that's primarily because of the heavy consumption of the Sudan grass crop that's going on.
Yeah, we were able to, excuse me, get a lot of land that's coming out of sugar beets and wheat. And so that's the ground that's going into fouling.
Valley. And on the water overuse, is there a new estimate on what the overuse is?
No, it's still about 160,000.
No, I'm sorry, that's what I thought you were talking about.
No,
I still see Sudan grass being
it's
planted.
still coming in, yeah.
And it consumes a tremendous amount of water.
Yeah, the water orders, of course, have dropped off, but that's the big use now is forage crops.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Silva.
Okay, thanks, Jess. Yes, now come to the mic if you have something to say, please.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, John Pierre. Steve Scroni. Mr. Silva, I noticed that we're still running 60 to 65,000 a month with Carter. Could we, the public, get a little more information about what exactly John Carter's doing for $60,000 to $65,000 a month? I'm assuming, since you're the water manager, he falls under your authority, or maybe he falls under Mr. Garber's. But could we, the public, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I'd like to know what in the heck he's doing for $65,000 a month. This goes on and on. Mr. Kelly said he was cutting that back. I mean, can you help us with this, Mr. Chairman, about getting us some information about what Mr. Carter was doing? Because one of the premises of the QSA that Ms. Mendoza does not want to blow up was this was supposed to be big peace on the river, yet we got to pay Carter $65,000 a month to protect the river. So, I mean, what's he doing? Is he like going up and down the river with a machine gun? And I mean, what is he doing for $65,000 a month? I mean, month after month, we keep hearing about how this is going to go away. Mr. Garber, you want to
just quickly answer that?
The board did cut Mr. Carter's budget. We recently hired another attorney with an eye towards having her trained to be able to eventually replace or supplement Mr. Carter. Those are both actions that the board took. At least that should be helpful as an answer.
It's maybe your answer, but what are we doing? It's taking so much time. Now we have 2 attorneys. Mr. Carter's budget has not gone down. Now you're telling me we have another attorney. So what are we at now? 75 or 85,000 a month?
Mr. Carter's and Mr. Swan's budget were specifically reduced by the board. They did go down. I don't know.
It's 65,000.
No, it's
who has the thing? Where's the
It's
list?
not the month. There is a annual budget for Mr. Carter and Mr. Swan, and they cannot see that annual budget unless we go back to the board. That was discussed in closed session and put on the record in open session.
Okay, let me ask this a different way. How long will we continue to see $65,000 a month Carter bills to protect the river? How many more months are we going to be paying Mr. Carter $65,000 to do what I don't know that. Do you folks know what he does for $65,000?
I don't think they are $65,000 a month.
He has a budget for 2012, and then he'll have a budget for 2013. So when you get appointed by the supervisors to sit up here, then you can straighten all this out, Steve.
Well, John Pierre, under California Law 54950, this is supposed to be an open process. I don't have to be elected to ask and find out why you are spending $65,000. I don't think you know what he's doing for $65,000 a month. I don't think Mr. Hanks, Mr. Desert, or Ms. Mendoza knows. I think you need to study fiduciary law.
He has explained to us, but no matter what he's doing, it wouldn't be good enough for you. So,
well, can you tell us something? Maybe it might surprise you, JP.
Not at this point in time. He can come in here. We can request him to come in here and give an open session.
Well, that's going to cost us another $5,000 to have him come in and explain. You mean another BS session like Osias did on the 15th and lied to us about Amendment 5? Are you talking about that kind of session? Okay, well, like I said, at some point, folks, we need to, realize we're getting screwed here. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Anybody else on the water issues with Mr. Silva? All right, thank you. We're going to move on to item number 3, the update on the local entity 2012 non-competitive mitigation program. Mr. Brooks.
President, Directors, first I'm requesting, acting as the local entity board, that we make a motion and vote on the extension for the 2 weeks that we granted for the turn-in period from last week.
You're asking for an action item now on that?
That should have been moved.
We all kind of okayed that.
Okay.
Hey, Jeff, he's asked Mr. Garber say that to Mr. Garber, please.
We're not voting today on the extension?
We are voting today on the extension. I thought it was in the agenda.
Under information, no.
It's not on the agenda.
Then
Okay.
I saw the agenda item that you gave me. I didn't see it in the agenda. I'm sorry.
Well, we're going to give an update on the non-competitive program real quick.
But not on the extension, because it's not an action item, it's
That's
not
correct.
posted.
Right,
And you
this-
can't violate the Brown Act.
That's correct.
You should know that by now.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Give the update.
Okay.
Oh, God.
Does that have to do with a local entity?
Steve Scaroni, more back to the budget. Eckhart.
No.
That's not part of this?
We're talking on local entity.
Okay,
Too
well,
late.
but what are
Come
we
back-
paying
come back
Eckhart
next
to
time.
do? How much are we paying him a month?
Forget it.
But
Steve.
isn't that tied to local entity, or is that part of the
No,
fair to
you're
plan?
out of order. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm out of order. Thank you.
Okay, you're out of order. Okay, Vince, go ahead, Glenn. You're going to give the update? Okay, go ahead.
I guess I'm giving the update. The extension, of 2 weeks, which we have announced, is working out for the benefit of the farm service providers for the local entity. Since last week, I have given out, I think I've had 3 or 4, I think 3 new farm service providers come by the office and pick up the flash drives. I have had 4 or 5 sessions where I have sat down and helped farm service providers go through and fill out the forms online. It seems that once I sit down with them and go through it through a couple of forms, and they see how it's done, they understand how it is or how to do it, and they feel a lot more comfortable do it. And it's probably taken on the average of a half hour or so for each one. It's relatively fast. For general information, for the program, we held, Gustavo Reza and myself held 3 workshops here at Condit Auditorium, and there were 38 people who attended all 3, or between the 3, there were 38 people who attended. And we have given out 72 flash drives with the programs. There have been a couple of minor adjustments that we have made on the rates or the flash drives. But overall, it has gone very well.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Mr.
Director?
Sampson, on the competitive grants, what is the time frame on that? After the non-competitive, when do you start on the competitive grants?
That has been talked about. I'm not sure of the date. I would defer to Mr. Reza or Mr. Brooks, since he's standing behind me.
We're going to start putting the next competitive program together and the RFP at the end of this summer.
Okay, it is my understanding that I think that the board either voted or discussed that if we have an agency or an individual, whatever, receiving grants 2 years, for 2 years in a row, they're not eligible to submit an application, correct? Is that what we had talked about?
Yes.
I think we talked about it. I don't know whether it's in policy or not.
I'd have to look at the RFP. I know we did make some changes. I know it was talked about.
And the rationale, to my mind, is that we wanted to spread the wealth, let other agencies participate. So if you had received funds for the last 2 years, then you're not eligible to submit an application for the upcoming competitive grant solicitation, correct? All right.
Are we talking about competitive, non-competitive?
It's competitive right now.
Competitive.
Well, I would suggest if that's going to be the case, that it bring for the full board for
Yeah.
discussion and action.
Well, we were just saying, we'll bring back the RFP for potential revisions to the board. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Glenn, do you have anything else on the update?
I don't have anything right now. The flash drives, well, this thing will end in 2 weeks. It'll end on, I believe, the 25th, on the last Monday of this month. If the directors have any questions, be happy to answer them. I think 3 or 4 have already turned in.
Well, my question is, everything is running very smoothly, the forms, everything is understandable, and there's no serious problems involved, correct?
Let's say it's running smoothly. Next go around, it'll run very smoothly.
Okay, good. Okay, that's good. Getting better as we move forward.
Oh, we are.
Okay. All right, if that's it, okay, thank you, Glenn.
Thank you.
We'll move on to item number 4, request from Imperial County Farm Bureau regarding the funding total maximum daily load program 2013. I think Jose's Angels also here, so when we're done, he can make some comments.
Yes, Jose will be joining us as well.
Okay.
I'm Lindsay Dale, Imperial County Farm Bureau. I'm just going to give a brief introduction. The Farm Bureau stepped forward, as you all know, this program is very you all know this program very well. Farm Bureau stepped forward in 2000 to develop a coalition that acts as the liaison between the farmers and the regional board to address our silt and sediment TMDL. We have worked extremely hard on this program. We have 99% participation rate. We're operating under the only conditional prohibition left in the state. Our program is a model program for all other TMDL programs in the state, and we are extremely proud of what we have been able to accomplish in the few short years that we've been working on this. In the past, our program was funded through 319H grants through the state. However, as you know, the funding has run out, and for the last couple of years, the Farm Bureau has been covering that expense to continue our program on, because we do feel that it is extremely important and vital to continue on. We are asking for funding from the IID and requesting that it begin July 1st of this year. I'm going to allow Candace Nelson, she's our program director, to give you a brief just update on where we're at, and then followed by Jose from the regional board as well.
Good afternoon. I know you are fairly familiar with the program, so I just wanted to hit a few key points. When the TMDL was developed about a little over 10 years ago, both Imperial Irrigation District and the Valley Growers were each listed as responsible parties in the TMDL itself. At that point, Farm Bureau really felt it was expedient to create a coalition and to participate at that level. The coalition that Farm Bureau manages, we act as a liaison between the growers and the regional board. We offer education and outreach to the growers, and we also offer technical assistance to the growers from a grower point of view, and will help a grower understand what they need to do to reduce the amount of silt leaving their fields, and offer hands-on assistance in understanding that, doing that, and improving the results on everyone's fields. We also maintain the program database that farmers go on to update their farm plan every year, and we submit that data to the regional board each year. We also ensure that all the participants are meeting the program requirements, and if they are not meeting the program requirements, we address that with them, and in severe cases, we have been forced to eliminate people from the program and report them to the regional board. Usually they return pretty quickly when they hear from the regional board. We also coordinate with IID and the regional board itself. The whole of the TMDL really relies on a symbiotic partnership between the regional board, the Imperial Irrigation District, and the Farm Bureau. The regional board sets the TMDLs, they receive the data and analyze the data. They also do monitoring on the rivers. Farm Bureau provides the education, the outreach, the technical assistance, the database, and a lot of the hands-on work. And IID does monitoring of the drains themselves, and also you assist with the sediment load reduction by your maintenance of the drains themselves. The result of that really is significant reductions in the amount of silt that leaves the fields and the drains and enters the rivers. And here's the most recent numbers that I have. The gold number shows the initial measurements when the TMDL was developed. The silver is the goal, and the blue is the most recent measurement. You can see that very quickly, actually, in the New River, we met and actually significantly exceeded that goal. And in the Alamo River, we're well on our way toward achieving that goal. The New River Improvement Project spent quite a bit of time looking at the TMDL program. They felt very strongly that the program is successful and needs to continue. You can see some of the quotes that they made in the report itself: working beyond expectations, unprecedented success. We really feel strongly that the program is such a success because we have such strong participation from the growers. About 99% of the acreage is enrolled. We have a significant amount of BMPs that are in place on the fields. We have greater than 5 BMPs per field on average. At the most recent number that I have was 27,030 BMPs were in place around the valley. And one of the key parts of this is, and this is part of the reason why we've been able to make this program so efficient, is that the BMPs are implemented at the cost of the growers.
BMP, what does that stand for?
I'm sorry, a BMP is a best management practice, and it is something that's put in place as something that is going to reduce the amount of silt leaving a field. It can be anything from something really simple like a wider drain box with filter strips, filter mats, rubber tires around a drain box to help reduce the erosion. It can also be something a lot more complex, a lot more costly: proper leveling of the field, micro irrigation, tailwater reuse programs. So all those things are done by the farmer at their own expense and at their own choice as to what's going to work best with their soil type, with the crop that they're using, and with their own farming and irrigation practices. And we think the result really speaks for itself. That kind of brings us to why we're here today. The program historically operated on grant funding. That funding, along with a lot of grant funding, has dried up in recent years. And so it is currently operating through Farm Bureau funding with an annual stipend from IID that has in the past been about $35,000 a year. We expect the cost for 2013 to be about $160,000, and we are respectfully requesting an ongoing commitment to funding the program from IID.
Weren't you also aware or notified that the funding from the Water Board was going to diminish as time went by, and that we had to look for additional funding?
We've actually
because those grants were not going to be there forever.
Right. We actually have continued to apply for grants and have worked toward that. But again, with the state of the government funding being as it is.
There was prior notice that the grant funding was going to get smaller and smaller and eventually disappear. We were all aware of that, correct?
At the time, it was when everything was going down. It's certainly something that everyone knows. But this happened several years ago when all the funding was drying up. It all dried up kind of fairly quickly. We actually, the last time that we expected to receive a grant, we actually fully expected to receive that, and we're not.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm trying to convey is that we all knew that even when this program first was initiated, that the grant funding was not going to last forever, and that they were encouraging the Farm Bureau, the IID, to work together to come out with different funding methods, because you couldn't rely on their grant funding forever.
The funding from the state has always been, in our opinion, was going to be there. We were encouraged that it would always be there because the program had continued success. This caught us on surprise. We applied for the grants, and the money just wasn't there. The
I guess the information I received was not the same as that.
I think we disagree on that.
We were kind of put on notice that don't depend on the state funding because it's not going to last forever. And so we need to work together to find some other type of cooperation to fund this program.
The reality of now is that we certainly do need to look for other sources of funding.
And to my reality, that was the reality back then.
I wasn't,
and so
I wasn't there at the time. So.
Yeah, I don't think that was it might be what you interpreted as, but I don't think that was how it was presented to the Farm Bureau at the time. We've always been under the understanding that grant money would be there, and we always had the support from the regional board to obtain that.
Okay,
Do we have any other questions before we let Jose come up? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President, board members, Mr. Kelly, staff, members of the audience. My name is Jose Angel. I am the Assistant Executive Officer for the Regional Water Quality Control Board. I wanted to take the time today to come and express support for the request. I can appreciate some of the tough decisions that you board members need to make, particularly as it relates to financial matters. It's never a good time to give money away, certainly in terms of a grant. But let me offer this for your consideration beyond what Candace from the Farm Bureau mentioned about the unprecedented success of the program. I think the program is vital to the IID because without it, it just puts the farmers in the most awkward situation of having to develop a program so they can deal with us on a one-to-one basis. I would submit for your consideration that is typically not a very productive relationship, as Candace mentioned, not just from a regulatory perspective, but also because of it, the requirements that we would impose on individual farmers, I think tend to be, using their own words, a little bit more draconian than the requirements that we have imposed on a coalition, and that's where you get a lot of bang for your buck. The fact is that we did set up the program with grant funding, and the Farm Bureau has the necessary infrastructure to continue to manage the coalition. Starting from scratch, looking to form a new coalition is certainly going to run easily upwards of $500,000. So in the short term, I would urge you to consider it as a short-term measure. I do agree with you, Director Mendoza, that in the long term, and we have discussed this with the Farm Bureau, and we'll be discussing it with your staff also in more detail, that we're going to have to work together look for alternative sources of funding. In general, the direction that the state is taking statewide, farmers tend to pay for a nominal fee to be a member of a coalition. So that's going to have to work out, but that's the general direction that the state has taken. But again, going back to where we see the program is instrumental, not just, from my perspective, not just because of the water quality results. They're there, and it's got extremely good standing with my board. It's also instrumental because it's unique in the state, and we have managed to cooperate at all levels. I would offer that is rare when you see me here before you giving you bad news. I have come in a couple of occasions during the last 5-6 years, but we have managed to resolve the problems at the staff level because of the uniqueness of the program and the level of cooperation that we have at the staff level. So I would urge you to consider funding the program. We will be moving forward, as you suggested, Ms. Mendoza, looking for alternative sources of funding. But we do need to allow a somewhat of a rational transition to the new fiscal reality.
So what time frame is this rational transition?
We're looking at 2 years, and we have discussed this with the Farm Bureau.
2 years?
Yeah, we're doing the necessary.
At $160 a year? That's what you're looking at?
I'm not suggesting that. Let me rephrase what I said, or put it more clearly. What we have suggested what we have brought to the attention of the Farm Bureau, and we have discussed it with some of your staff, is that we will be looking at new policy where a nominal fee is going to be imposed directly to the farmers, and the farmers are going to have to contribute to whatever program we have or whoever is the coalition, that's going to happen with the next couple of years. What I'm suggesting to you today is that you consider funding this request. You can revisit it at your convenience next year if you seem dim. But we need to allow for this normal transition so we can do the necessary outreach and education with the farming community and preparing for that transition.
Okay, hold on, Mr. Silva, is there funding in your water budget for the 160 for this year?
We didn't have this specific item budgeted, but we do have some money that we can move over if we need to.
Right.
I was assuming that this would be for the next budget year, but it wasn't clear to me whether it's going to be partially this year and partially next year.
Is this for this year or for next year?
I think the Farm Bureau needs the nominal amount to run the program on a yearly basis.
No, the 160, is it for starting July 2012?
We would like, that would be a that would be a year's budget. It would be nice to start July 1st.
Of this year, 2012?
2012, yes. However, yeah.
Okay, well, it would be my recommendation to this board to fund this for July 2012 to July 2013, and then come and talk about it again and see if we can help you for the following year, or maybe you guys can come up with a different solution, but at least kind of help you out this year.
That would be very, very appreciative, at least from my board's perspective, Ms. Mendoza and board members.
But again, I want to make it 1 year only.
Sure,
and then we can talk.
I understood that. We will need time to sit down with your staff and the Farm Bureau and key members of
So that would be my
the farming
recommendation
industry.
to the board, to bring it back for a 1 year funding.
If I may interject also, it will be difficult. Although we do appreciate the 1 year funding, it will be difficult to plan us out in the future. What Jose was talking about on the fee that will be charged to the growers, that fee that's being proposed will not go to our program whatsoever. It will be directly paid to the state. So we will not benefit.
You didn't say that, Mr. Angel. You didn't say it was going to
That's
go
what
to
I
the
was
state.
hearing when he was saying that. I was kind of shaking. Go ahead and explain that.
Well, let me elaborate on that. I think Lindsay is partly correct. The state is going to be charging a fee because that's the direction that the state in general is going. All the regional boards.
So it's going to go to the state, it's not going to go to the local effort.
I'm going there, Ms. Mendoza. Excuse me. A portion of the fee goes to the state, and I think what I suggested to in the discussions we have had with the Farm Bureau is that the Farm Bureau is also going to have to look into charging a nominal fee so it can run its program in addition to
So the farmers are going to get charged twice, one for the local program, one for the
hopefully
state.
it will be just be one bill.
Well, again, my recommendation is to go for 1 year till we can kind of see what's going to happen.
Right.
That's my recommendation to the board.
Is Director Hanks or Director? Go ahead, Director Hanks.
This is just another example of a state unfunded mandate that's passed down. You know, the state's in trouble, so they put it out in forms of fees. But if the compliance requirement, I don't know how it can work without cooperation of the IID and the farmer together.
Mm-hmm.
And we're looking at 5 cents per acre foot assessment. You know,
Yes.
which the growers are going to pay 97% of that. So so it's coming out of their own pocket, basically. But if we don't cooperate, if we don't do this together, what is the compliance fines? What are we faced with? I just don't know how you separate it.
Well, they do have to work hand in hand. To be successful, this program has to work together. The farmers have to present that clean water coming off of the field into the drain for the IID to maintain it properly. So it has to work completely hand in hand. And Mr. Hanks, you are right. The water budget is funded by the ag users. And so ultimately, the farmers are paying for this. Even with the contribution from the IID, ultimately the farmers are paying
So
for
this is funded by the $20 an acre foot that we charge for ag water?
This is coming out of your water budget, so that would be funded by...
$20 an acre foot?
Yes.
Which is really unrealistic, as you and I know. But it's
we
cool.
could
Bring it back.
take it out of the QSA where it's $460 an acre foot, which would amount to 1/4%.
Wherever it comes from, let's talk dollars and dollars and cents here.
Director Desert, do you have any comments?
No, it's been a good, very productive program, a good relationship between the Farm Bureau and our local irrigators. It's been very successful, and we need to keep it going. We need to pick it up at our water rates or pick it up with the QSA transfer, and we'll do that as we move forward into the future.
But so it'll come back for the third meeting in June for action.
Okay, thank you so much.
As you know, I've been involved in this even before I got on the board. So, Jose, you know that. So I'm in favor of it.
Yeah, I remember the hockey meetings, Mr. Menville, and but thank you for your support and thank you for your consideration.
Appreciate you coming down here and making your comments. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to next item, which is number 5, review of major work authorization covering the overhaul of the Imperial Dam roller gates. Doug.
That's me. I'm Doug Cox, Imperial Dam project owner. This roller gate, there's 4 roller gates over Imperial Dam. These are the big gates that turn the water in to the All-American. Roller gate number 4 was done a couple of years ago, and when we did the bottom half of the gate, we found some structure damage that the other gates, so we thought the other gates probably have some too. So what we need to do is we need to get into these gates. We've got one budgeted for the next 3 years. Of course, the budget hasn't been approved, but we're trying to budget them for the next 3 years. This is the first one. We're going to go 1, 2, and 3. And these gates are 75 years old, and the bottom part of those gates have been in the water the whole time. So what we're going to do is we're going to raise the gates past limit switches as far open as we can get them, and then get to the bottom of the gates and see if there's any structural damage, fix it, and fix the bottom of the gates, paint them, and bring them back up to where they should be.
Questions for Mr. Cox?
I just have one. Is there any assessment to other All-American Canal users?
Yes, if you look here on the financial impact, the IID share is 75% or almost 76%, and the rest of it is paid by the other agencies.
Okay, thank you, Doug.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Doug, thank you very much. We'll come back, bring this back for action.
It'll come back for action at the next board meeting.
Can we move on to item number 6, presentation of major work authorization to refurbish 6 pumps generating units at Senator Wash?
That's me too.
Go ahead, Doug.
This was this major work authorization was one of those that we went back and made after the project was almost finished. So it just brought everything out in the open, so everybody knew, the board knew it was going on. This is paid entirely by the Bureau of Reclamation, no cost to the district.
Okay, any questions for Doug?
Bring it back at the next meeting.
Thank you, Doug. Move on to item number 7, review of major work authorization covering work by the California Department of Transportation on Highway 111 SR7. Ismail.
Good afternoon. Board members of the board. You have from you major work authorization for work related to the Caltrans relocation, highway relocation projects, which due to the construction of the highway in the last couple of years, I will say, they impacted IID facilities, water and drainage facilities. This major work authorization will take into account all the other projects they are related to the relocation of the facilities, but not actually the facilities itself. In other words, due to the relocation of the facilities, we noticed after some time after dealing with Caltrans that our Sanjeros were impacted. For instance, where the highway before they used to chase the water all the way along the banks of the canals, and then the highway comes in and it comes with fences and it prevents the Sanjeros from doing their work. That after long discussions with them, we educated. Now we use that word because that's what it was. The water department educated Caltrans in regards to the impacts to our operations and maintenance activities. Again, as a result of that, Caltrans agreed, and making the long story short, they made room in their utility agreements to pay for changes or improvements into our facilities in order to be able to address those impacts.
So how are you going to address those impacts?
There is, if you look in the document, I will say page 59.
I see, okay.
List all the impacts to the facilities and what actually is being done in order
Okay.
to address those.
I got it.
Okay, do you have anything else on Ismail? Any questions for Ismail on this?
Bring it back at the next
Bring it back
meeting.
for action.
That's correct.
Thank you very much. Move on to number 8, Energy General Matters. Number A, update on El Centro Unit 3 repowering project. Mr. Ivy?
Henrik Olstowski, Assistant Manager, Energy. I wanted to provide an update on El Centro Unit 3 repower project with a focus on the gas turbine generator 32 failure and the actions we're taking to move the entire project forward. I guess it's well known, I believe, gas turbine generator 32 failed with less than 100 hours while Siemens was commissioning it. Our first site activity with regards to gas turbine generator 32 is to do an inspection of the unit, and that'll involve removal of the outer case at site. Once we take a look at the internals, we'll reassemble the turbine, and it'll be removed and shipped to Finspång, Sweden for our forensic disassembly to find the exact cause. Both on site and in Sweden, IID will have site presence and watch the disassembly. Moving forward, our plan is to, as far as the repair of gas turbine generator 32, is to replace the gas turbine generator core with a brand new core. That core is in transit from Sweden and is expected into the Port of Houston on July 2nd. It'll be trucked cross-country from the Port of Houston, and we'll be expecting it on July 11th. When it arrives on site, we'll proceed with installation into the Unit 32. And we're expecting after the installation and what we call cold commissioning, we expect to fire the unit off either late July or early August. Regarding the commissioning of the rest of the Unit 3, what we plan to do is this week is to restart our gas turbine generator 31. And that'll allow us to continue commissioning the steam turbine generator 30. Gas turbine generator 31 is identical to the gas turbine that failed. So to ensure that we had confidence that there wouldn't be no similar issues with gas turbine generator 31 as we had with 32, we bore scoped the inside of the gas turbine 31, found no abnormalities. We also compared all the operating data that we had from gas turbine 31 and compared it to a new engine, and the performance on gas turbine 31 was it was at least as good as what the design data indicated. So we have a lot of confidence in moving forward, restarting this engine, and again continuing to commission the entire Unit 3. Contractually, we're working on a memorandum of, or we're very close to getting to a memorandum of understanding with Siemens, dealing with commercial terms as a direct result of the GTG 32 failure. And we're also working with on a memorandum of understanding with ARB for the exact same reason. We want to get these agreements or memorandum of understanding completed so that everybody's moving in the same direction. To recap on the planned schedule, we're going to restart gas turbine generator 31 this week and work towards finishing the steam turbine generator 30, and we expect to have that completed within the June time frame. As I said earlier, the new core, replacement core, will arrive on site around mid-July, and we'll start the process of installing that and doing the hot commissioning. We expect first fire late July, early August, and we expect to finish the commissioning the plant within the August time frame and look to have the unit into commercial operation early September.
Okay, any questions for Henrik?
Any questions?
Okay, Henrik, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to item number 9, amendment number 1, the major work authorization for the Nyland substation upgrades. Mr. Ivy.
Joel Ivy, interim energy manager. President Menville, directors, I'm still doing that. It's been long enough, hasn't it? Direct your attention to page 69. We're coming forward trying to close the deal for the Sun Peak solar interconnection and the additional substation or revamping of the substation at Nyland. We are looking at some cost overruns, and we're coming forward asking the board for approximately, or more specifically, $389,123 out of the original $4.4 million that was approved in the MWA early in 2011. I'll tell you progress on the Sun Peak facility. They're still looking probably at a COD first week of July, but they are coming online as we speak. They're synchronizing with the grid, and they're able to start producing some generation. So good news with that.
So what would be the total amount of the project with this increase?
We would go from the 4.4 million approved to the 4.7, 4.8.
Okay. All right.
That's what we're asking for.
Mr. Ivy, the expenditures of 1.1 million, is that coming out of the overestimated from the prior year? I can't see the correlation between the 389 and the 1.1 million. Maybe you can explain that to me.
We had 1.1 million, as I recall, Director Hanks, for the 2012 budget season. So a good deal of the expenditures actually took place in 2011.
So you're asking for an additional 389 above the budgeted amount? Is that
above the total project amount? Yes, sir.
Okay, so the total overrun then is 1.4, 1.5 million?
The total overrun against the MWA is the 389,123.
Okay.
This is the only amendment we've done, the 389,123?
Yes. That's correct.
And then when this is finished, the substation is completed, the 23 megawatts of solar power generation from Sun Peak will be able to transmit 100% onto the system.
That is correct.
And it'll be able to do that 100% when the Nyland peaker plant is online 100% also?
We do have some operational issues with the 75 MVA step-up transformer from 92 to 161. We have to monitor that. We've got some controls in place. There's some switching that we can do to mitigate for it, but that's a future upgrade that we certainly need to be doing and looking at.
So that future upgrade will need to happen as there's a second solar facility built in the Nyland area adjacent to the Sun Peak.
Well, let's just say that this is in our 5-year plans to get that transformer upgraded.
And that's a 92.
Without.
That's a 92 kV transformer upgraded to what?
It's a 92 to 161, so it's a 75 MVA transformer. We would probably upgrade it to. In fact, one of the trains of thought we have right now is when we upgrade the El Centro transformer for the projects that are bypassing the system, we'd take that transformer and move it to Nyland. That's a 125, so we'd get a little bit more breathing room.
So that the upgrade, the transformer that's going to become available is going to become available where? At El Centro?
The one from El Centro, that's correct.
El Centro Bank, the El Centro Bank?
It's, I think it's Bank 2.
Bank 2?
Yeah.
And because that
it's a 161 to 92. It's right voltage and everything for this installation.
We're currently upgrading that one?
We will be when we start bringing these solar facilities online down south.
Okay. And what's a ballpark price for that kind of an upgrade if we had to go out and buy it?
We've actually priced the cost of upgrading in that specific station, and the issue is, as you all know, it's an old station. It's in need of more than just a transformer. That's why this Nyland project that we're talking about right now was more than maybe $2.5 million or something like that. So we need to revamp the station in general. The total construction cost we're estimating is about $6.5 million.
That's for El Centro.
That is for Nyland.
$6.5 million.
And it's about the same for El Centro, frankly.
Any further questions from Mr. Ivy?
Well, we're going to have a further meeting on Thursday and discussing system impact studies and things. I'd like to continue this line of discussion at that time, Joel, to look at how we planned for that and what projects were going to be associated with covering those costs.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Good deal. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Joel. We'll move on to item number 10, review a request for quotation number 880 for professional engineering services and service agreements. There's 3 items
Stuck with
here.
me.
Go ahead.
If you recall, we've gone out, and I've come before the board a couple of times. We've gotten service agreements for companies to do civil type work, grading, drainage, preparation for our station sites on an as-needed basis, and also for surveying and soil sampling and things like that. This is just another opportunity to get a little bit ahead of the game and having engineering firms on board that can do engineering analysis and design for us on an as-needed basis. These would be for projects that we would not expend funds on until we come before the board and get approval for the projects themselves.
Are any of these companies local companies?
I don't believe any of these are.
Did any local companies bid on these proposals?
I'm not sure that any local companies would have the expertise that we were looking for.
Okay.
Specifically for transmission line design is what I'm talking
Well,
about.
you said surveying, so.
Well, in the past, we did some service agreements for surveying. We did award those to local companies.
Okay.
Okay, you're covering all 3 of these, A, B, and C.
Yes, sir. We want to have the choice to be able to use these 3 companies, and again, we'd come before the board for approval for the projects that they'd be working on.
All right, any questions from the board? Okay, thank you, Mr. Ivy. We'll move on to number 11, discuss service agreement with Pennsylvania Breakers, LLC. Go ahead, Joe.
Okay. We also went out for bids for breakers, and the train of thought is when we have breakers that fail around the system or they're just to the point where they need to be replaced, we want to be able to have good responsive bidders and breaker manufacturers ready to go so we can get these things replaced in a timely manner. We also tossed in the notion to be able to use these in some of the bigger projects that we may have coming along. Some of the transmission expansion projects, for example. Those projects, none of those projects I'm talking about have been approved before the board, but this service agreement gives us the opportunity to be able to order and get these breakers in an expedited amount of time. The Pennsylvania Breakers is relatively new to us. They're an old company, but they're new to us, and they were certainly the lowest responsible bidder in this case. And we're comfortable with using these manufacturers and having the ability to order breakers on an as-needed basis, subject to approval with the board, of course.
This goes back on
Any
the
questions?
26th.
This manufacturer, Pennsylvania Breakers, they have breakers already in our desert area within the IID system that we're using?
They're very well known across the country, specifically where Director Desert, I don't know.
But our hot, dry desert climate is conducive to working with this caliber of breaker, or
I would be comfortable in saying that they could perform.
Yeah, so is the heat an element of consideration when you're installing or buying breakers?
That's always a consideration for us out here when the engineers are talking to the manufacturers. But you know what? Let me follow up when I do the item for consent next time, and see if I can get you some locations.
Thank you.
Okay, Joel. Anna, you're up on change, number 12, change in method of disposing IID surplus personal property.
a pause for the media here.
Is this like overstock.com?
Well, we'll see what it ends up being like. Good afternoon, President Menville and directors. If you remember last May at the end, the board passed a policy 1525, which was for the handling, disposal, and disposition of salvage goods. Let's see. I'm not sure about this. Which way do you go forward on this? Okay.
Right arrow.
Thank you. Okay, and then following in July, I gave a presentation that talked about the process that we were using to go through disposal. And several of the different methods are listed in the first bullet. We could have a reassignment, destruction at times, disposal by contract, IID auction. We've handled a lot of vehicle auctions here. We have third-party auctions. We have online third-party auctions, which they post the surplus items on eBay and similar sites. We have IID solicitation, sealed bids, and any other methods that would be in the best interest of the district. So since that time, we've been using some third-party online auction sites to sell miscellaneous surplus goods that we have. And some of the services that they offer to us to help us in the surplus disposal process is they can come in and do photographs. They'll write up descriptions on this, handle the postings, the fees. They assist at the end with getting the materials shipped out. We found, however, that as we go through the process of identifying the surplus goods that come in, we actually have to do some of these same processes ourselves to keep things on track and warehoused correctly. So we're doing photograph of the item, descriptions of the item. We're doing research to determine the approximate value. And in the end, we're actually doing some of the shipping, helping the third-party provider. So of the different services they offer, we still have to perform those duties. Through this experience, we became familiar with a lot of the pros and cons of working with the third-party online auction folks. And what we have found is that a lot of these sites, they want to group things together. So they may offer several different pieces of office furniture in one posting. They do that to maximize what the potential is for the sale, because each time you post on these online sites, there's an auction fee to post that material. But what that does is it kind of also reduces the individual bidder's opportunity to select specific items. So evaluating what we've found so far is that the third-party providers are taking approximately 45% of the sale profit to perform these duties. And as we looked at it, we said, well, we're performing a lot of that. So with this in mind, we made the decision to try and leverage the functionality of our current online bidding solicitation site. And we are going to be launching the, the online auction sales, so that in this way we will be providing the public with open competition for bidding for the surplus items from the district. And we feel that we're going to be able to keep a larger percentage of the profit on that sale. Our go-live plans, we plan to introduce to the public starting this Sunday and then the following Sunday, advertisement in the paper. It'll be both in Imperial and the Coachella Valley. And we are trying to spark some interest among the public so that they will go online, create a profile, and that profile allows them to place a bid on the auction items. They can gain access through IID.com, and once they sign in after they've created a profile, then they have the authority to make a bid. As they're creating their profiles, the important thing for them to remember is that when they select the category that they're interested in, there are two main categories with goods and services. So that if they go into the service category, then they go to this line item, 1160, which is auction IID salvage. That gives us the knowledge that these are the vendors who are interested in auctions. It allows us to invite that whole group of vendors who are bidders. So there are many other categories, but that's for the online solicitations. So at the close of each auction, on the following business day, the highest bidder will be contacted via email so that they can make arrangements to make payment and pickup. We aren't as sophisticated as eBay, but we feel that this gives us a good profile and a platform by which to maximize how much money we're getting back on the auction items. If you remember last year, we talked about the basic steps whereby we receive materials and then we document and track the surplus goods. We establish what the estimate value is, and then based on that value and policy, we take it to the general manager or the board for approval to make a surplus sale. We determine the type of sourcing for sale, and then at the end we do reporting back to the board quarterly. There is one other advantage that we anticipate through using our online auctions website, in that we have the ability to offer these things internally to IID departments for a reassignment of an asset. So if we have items that we feel are serviceable, then we can offer those internally to the departments for a reassignment. If the items are not reassigned, then they would go on to the public auction for sale. But at this time where we're trying to be cost effective, we feel that this is going to offer us benefits to recycle, reuse, and reduce some of the costs in an effective manner. I don't know if you have any questions for me.
Anybody have any questions for Donna?
What about vehicles, and particularly non-compliant vehicles that maybe the only buyers will be in Mexico?
We have been going through third-party auction houses that specialize and have vendor lists of people who are allowed to buy the non-compliant diesel. So we have done, the last group of vehicles went to 3 different auction houses, and through analysis of the return, we had one of the auction houses perform what we felt, based on the return on the money and the ease in working with them, the best deal. And currently we have some, I think they're called salvage or junk items that are going to be on sale on the 14th.
I can see it right now. You're going to put Storage Wars out of business.
No, I don't think so. Like I said, we are not going to go on and be as pretty as eBay. Each of the postings will have the ability to have a picture to look at, and then we can post documents that have all the rest of the information. And then as we work forward, we hope to gain slight improvements. Currently, when the highest bidder is outbid, he will receive an email to let him know that he's been outbid. But the system won't inform who is the highest bidder at the end of the auction the way it does on eBay. We have to do that manually at this point in time. That'll be one of the things that we want to enhance as we go forward.
Okay, any further questions of Donna? Donna, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go move to item number 13, and then after this item, we'll take a short break before we go to action. 13's update on status of Western farmland sales, leases, and projected revenues. And I think who's handling that? Jesse or Tina? Okay. Good to see you over there, Paul.
I'm going to provide a brief update regarding the sales and lease of Western Farmlands. On the first slide here, just a couple things to bring to your attention. The original acreage was over 41,000. We have had, for a purchase price of a little over 77 million with bonds of just under 88 million. In terms of sales to date, we've had the 31 sales, 22,000 acres sold for a total gross sales of 109 million and some change. That does include the more recent sale in the sales, but it isn't reflected in the bond defeasement yet, so that doesn't include the most recent sale there. In terms of the inventory, as following from the first slide, there's remaining inventory now of about 19,000 acres. There are some acres that are, in essence, reserved, such as for the marshland, leaving a total surplus inventory of just under 15,000. This is difficult to read, but it does summarize all the sales with the most recent sale at the bottom. In terms of the leases, from 2011 to 2012, there was a drop in leases because of sales. The lands that were sold were of higher value, so we had a proportionately larger drop in revenue, as you can see. And then in terms of the water sales reflected from that in the revenue, the total water sales in acre feet has had quite a reduction due to the sale of lands, and it's proportionate to the sales in effect, and the revenue from that has proportionately dropped. And that's basically it.
Okay, any questions for Paul on the Western Farmlands? Okay, Paul, we'll take a quick break, 5-minute break, and then we'll come back to start on action 14, item number 14 for action. Okay, we're going to move on to the action agenda, and first thing on the action agenda is item number 14, which is acknowledge the receipt of the 2 internal auditing reports. Number A, Imperial Energy Store Inventory, and number B, La Quinta Energy Store Inventory. And Greg, you're going to take that? Go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon. We have 2 reports on Energy Department inventory this afternoon. The first report on the Imperial Energy Store. We took inventory at the Imperial Energy Store, which is located at headquarters for the most part, and these are the results. As we are required to do by policy, we notified the district certified public accountants, Moss Adams, of the date and the time of our inventory, and in fact, this time they did send an auditor to observe. Now, the inventory of the Energy Department in Imperial consists of $5,983,000, and that's 1,823 different items. In our report last year, we made a recommendation, and that recommendation was to update policy number 1551, annual inventory of stock material. And in fact, that policy was established in 1993 and had not been updated since. That recommendation was implemented when the board approved the updated version of policy 1551 on June 7th, 2011. On the day of inventory, when we began, the balance was $5,984,703. Our audit adjustments for that day, net audit adjustments, $2,202, leaving us with a balance of $5,982,501. This was a decrease from the previous year of right about $625,000. That is, inventory came down by 9% from the audited balance the previous year.
What was the reason for that, Mr. Gottis?
Control of purchasing material by the Energy Department. It was very common that when materials were used, they were reordered whether we needed them or not, and now the Energy Department is paying particular attention to that to keep the inventory under control.
Okay, thank you.
By any measure, the inventory had very good results. The net differences was, and this is on your page 105, net differences, the variance, less than 1%. Some of the differences where the gains and the losses are added together but not netted, still a variance of less than 1%. And finally, items adjusted total was a 98% accuracy. So again, this is outstanding by any measure. For further analysis, the Energy Department, at our recommendation in a previous audit, has adopted some tolerable variances for analysis of their inventory. The first, transformers, pad mount switches, and poles. The tolerable variance, as stated here, 0%. And in fact, the store's personnel maintained 0% variance for those items. Transformers, pad mount switches, and poles. What you would consider mostly high-value items in Imperial. And secondly, other materials, everything else. Some of relatively high value and a lot of other things of lower value, but all important nevertheless. Other values, less than 5% of book value and less than $100. There were only 5 items that exceeded the tolerable variance, and they're scheduled out for you there. So we reported them separately. The net difference for those 5 items, a little over $2,500. The sum of the differences where the gains are added to the losses, and instead of being netted, $6,448. That's a 99% accuracy from these measures of performance of stores personnel. Then we looked from the Imperial stores at we analyzed inventory variances for the year. We calculated the average inventory value for the year. This is on page 107, $6,295,000. When the variances, gains and losses netted, are compared to that number, this is gains and losses not on inventory day, of course, but throughout the year, that's a 1% variance. Also, very good. And also sum of differences, again, where the gains and losses are added together, still 1%. 1% variance. So this is a sustained effort by stores management, stores personnel throughout the year, not just on inventory day.
Mr. Gottlich, do you do this inventory once a year or every 2 years, or you just show up unannounced, or how do you do this?
We take a one-day inventory. It's about a day and a half inventory now in Imperial once a year. And that will be either in February or March. And then we go to La Quinta. We may go there first, or we may go there second. This year, La Quinta was second, and once a year. And then we take the water inventory in the fall. That's 1 day. But like I said, it's a sustained effort of cycle counts by stores personnel throughout the year. They pick a sample based on some stratification, and they count those items every day. And of course, there's going to be some variances, but at that point, they have a chance to research those variances and charge them or credit them to the appropriate place. So nevertheless, all of these variances I've showed you in this report for Imperial are well within the 5% tolerable variance established by the Energy Department for analysis of its inventory in Imperial. Are there any questions there?
No, I commend you for a job well done. And do we vote on these separately or together?
That's up to you.
Let's see if you got.
I still have to present the second one.
That's what I
you can
meant. Wait
approve
till-
this one now if you like.
Let me ask Director Hanks or Director Deddard any questions?
Well,
Okay, you wanna make a
I move
motion?
to accept the audit of the Imperial stores
There a
as
second?
presented.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, please vote. Thank you. Craig, go ahead.
Okay, our second report, inventory La Quinta Energy Store. We also took inventory in La Quinta, as we do every year. This, I believe when we started on this comprehensive coordinated inventory about 6-7 years ago, there was a 40% variance. So look and see what the variances are as I go through this report. It was 3 days to count then. Now we got it down to 1 day this year. Of course, that took a team effort. There was more than a dozen stores personnel and the superintendent of materials and dispersal, myself, and some representatives from the Energy Department. In La Quinta, on this day, the value of inventory, $4,916,000, comprised of 1,235 different items. In our report on La Quinta inventory a year ago, we made 2 recommendations. So that our first part of this audit was to follow up on the implementation of those 2 recommendations. The first one, consider adding a passage to the existing SOP that addresses closing open transfers in SAP prior to commencing the count, segregating and properly labeling all associated material items not to be counted. So this, in fact, was implemented. This was included in the new SOP for annual inventory. That SOP is, in fact, in process. It has not been adopted, but the passage is there, and we're confident that when the SOP is finally adopted, the passage will remain, but we'll be vigilant about following that. The second recommendation last year, update policy number 1551, annual inventory of stock material. And of course, as I stated in the first report, the board adopted that on June 7, 2011, the first amendments to that policy since 1993. Okay, now I'm on page 109. You see a table there. Our beginning balance for La Quinta inventory, $4,911,892. Our audit adjustments, a positive $4,022, leaving us with an ending balance of $4,915,914. That was a positive adjustment, but we don't necessarily look at a positive adjustment, again, as any better than a negative. It's an adjustment. It's plus or it's minus. They're still adjustments. We don't say, we don't commend anybody for a positive adjustment. But of course, as you can see there in the table, inventory is up from the previous year by 8%, $369,000. When I questioned the responsible personnel in the Energy Department, why is inventory up? Their response was that they consider an 8% fluctuation to be a normal fluctuation.
Do you?
Yes. Anything 10% or less would be a normal fluctuation. And also, they also stated that it's their assertion that this time of year in the spring is a time where they'd be naturally would be taking on some inventory to do additional work in later on spring and in the summer. So again, our ending balance, $4,915,914. On the next page, page 110, you can see a table where we track the net differences, the sum of the differences, items adjusted, less than 1% variance on the net differences, less than 1% variance on the sum of the differences, and a 97% accuracy on the items counted. Down 2% from the previous year, but still 97%, excuse me, very respectable, considering where La Quinta stores was some years ago. Again, we have the same tolerable variances that we use in Imperial. We use them in La Quinta. There were 16 items that exceeded the tolerable variance for the other materials, less than 5% of book value and less than $100. And the transformers, pad mount switches, and poles was, again, 0% tolerance. And you'll see on page 111, this is, in fact, the 16 items, which are all, for the most part, relatively low dollar value items. There's a few that get up as high as 300, but they're going to work on their vigilance on this. Try to bring it down in the next year. At the bottom of page 111, you can see how we have looked at the variances for La Quinta inventory only over the past year. That means looking at movement type 701 and 702, which are the gains and the losses, and then looking at another general ledger account, losses to inventory, and it's still within the a 1% variance, consistent with the variances in Imperial. Now, in the course of reviewing the variances in inventory, now I'm on page 112, we discovered that there had been 3 transformers charged to losses to inventory. And the responsible personnel in the Energy Department intended to move these from one SAP storage location called La Quinta Main Store to another SAP storage location in La Quinta called La Quinta Non-Conforming Materials, kind of set it aside and not have it set for reorder. And these 3 transformers were charged to expense, even though they still resided in inventory, but at no value, so 0 value. So we took a look at that and saw the process that went through, they followed to do that, and noted that there should have been no loss recorded. In fact, they can change the location, the physical location or the SAP storage location, but because the cost was known, the cost should have stayed with those materials. So we see that there was a little bit of confusion by stores personnel, and there's not really a defined process to give direction on the movement of material. So we're going to make a recommendation, our first recommendation, correct the movement of the 3 transformers from TD02 to LNON, that's the La Quinta main stores and La Quinta non-conforming equipment, so that the $54,419 loss is reversed and the transformers are recorded in inventory at their historical cost. And of course, management has agreed to this. And then our second recommendation, so this doesn't happen again, develop a written standard operating procedure which documents the process for executing all SAP inventory management movement types. And
Who will be responsible for writing the SOP?
We believe that responsible personnel in the material resources and dispersal should develop, that's stores management, should develop an SOP which documents the process for executing.
Is there a time frame for that?
By our next inventory, they should show a year from now, they should show some progress.
Okay.
They should develop this SOP that it covers the process to initiate, classify, authorize, execute, and review a material movement in SAP.
Okay. Good work.
Thank you.
Very thorough. Again, I move to accept the audit report for the La Quinta store.
Second? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Please vote. Thank you. We'll move on to...
I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks, Craig.
Thank you, Craig.
Thank you very much. Well done. Item number 15, request to extend the terms of the Western Farmland leases.
Good afternoon, Mr. President and board members. As you know, this year we continue to need quite a bit of water to transfer and to make up for last year's overage. And so we have gone out and fallowed some of the lands, the Western farmlands, and we've done it by having the leaseholders fallow a third roughly this year, and then be able to fallow the next 2 additional years, so that by the end of 3 years we have fallowed all of those lands, at least a third of them every year. One of the things that they've asked about is if we could, instead of having year-to-year leases, is have 3-year leases, because basically we've had a commitment from them for the next 3 years to conserve, to fallow some of those lands. And again, this was an item that was asked of me with about almost all of the leaseholders that I talked to. So I told them that I would bring it up to the board and see if we could do that. Basically, it just commits us and them to this 3-year fallowing proposal that we've come up with.
I know that we had discussed that in order to make the water necessary, that we had to be creative in the leases and work with the tenants. And so
Yeah, they've all been very helpful, and they realize that we have to conserve the water, and so they've all been helpful. So I thought, to me, it's it's something that doesn't change our ability to, if we have to, for instance, make sure that we have some catastrophe. Just because we give them a 3-year lease doesn't mean that we can't go back in there and take the water if we need to. All it does is just gives them an ability to plan better.
Well, I move to approve the recommendation by staff regarding the current ag leases for the Western Farmlands be extended to a 3-year term.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second that with some more discussion.
Go ahead.
Jesse, as we move into this area and we lease a piece of Western Farmlands ground for 3 years, that doesn't necessarily mean that piece is safe from the IID needing to fallow it. That's correct? That's
correct. In other words, we will, include language that says that we still have the right to go in there and have them fallow if some extraordinary situation arises or the board passes a resolution to that effect.
And if we lease some of this ground for 3 years, if the years preceding that 3-year lease, say it's 2 years of IID fallowing that ground, is it your feeling that ground will be capable of going into, say, an alfalfa crop? Because that's kind of specifically what we're looking at doing, why we're doing a 3-year lease. Can we fallow for 2 years and then go straight into an alfalfa crop, or would that property or that farmer need to grow a wheat crop to mellow out the soil before he planted that alfalfa crop?
I think it would depend on the circumstances, the type of soil and those kind of things. I know that they're all worried, especially up in the north end, about getting some water on their concrete ditches so that they don't break up and things. And so I think what's going to happen is on the 3rd year, we need to come back to the board and decide whether we want to continue 3-year leases to allow them to grow 3-year crops, for instance, versus only thing that they can grow is, annual crops.
Right, and the ag economy is real hot right now, so who knows what will happen in
we don't know what
in
it
the
is,
future.
but I think that 3 years from now, we need to make that
Jesse,
decision.
the private landowner, the private farmer that's fallowing ground right now, he has access to water to put into his head ditch periodically during the year to keep that moisture and to keep those pipes saturated or the soil saturated.
Yes, it's part of the process that we have now.
And then how about the Western farmland properties that the IID is going to fallow? Are we anticipating having the labor or having a sand harrow of someone available to go out once, twice, 3 times a year and do the same thing on our properties that we own ourselves?
Yes, we will do the same thing. But remember, these people are going to be found, so they're still responsible for that. So they will request it from us. We will go through the process that we have, which is the district has to open the gate and close it.
Yeah,
so
the
we
private sector person will.
But our
at the
leaseholders,
IID on our Western farmland property that the IID has, are we going to have somebody that's going to be periodically putting some water into the head ditch?
No, again, the leaseholders will make that decision, and I think they've all requested that. So they will be responsible to tell us when they want that water to be put in there.
Yeah, my second stands.
Okay, Director Hanks, you have any questions?
Yes. What is the number of acres that we're talking about on the Western farmlands?
The total that's under lease right now?
No, that will be coming out for fallowing.
This year, we only ended up with about 3,500 acres that will follow this year.
Okay, as you're aware, I've complained about how regional it is because most of this land is centered in one location in the Imperial Valley. Let me ask you this. What is the average savings per acre of water?
It's close to 5 acre-feet. We're using lands that have at least 3 acre-feet per acre because anything that has less than that, we're not even
Okay, so you're saying 5?
The average is close to 5. It's not quite 5.
And what will be the payment to the IID for that water?
The payment will be whatever the amount that we're receiving from San Diego, which I believe it's 490. Greg knows the number, but I think it's 490.
Okay. So what I'm getting at, if it's say just for round numbers 500, so that's $2,500 an acre. That's going to come back to the IID. We're talking about letting ground set, and in the past, that ground, well, I'll put it this way, we weren't very good stewards of the land. It grew up in weeds, it created all kinds of problems for their neighbors. They had, when we leased it back, it was at reduced rates because they had to clean it up. There was cement ditches that buckled because of the lack of water. So I'm wondering how are we going to do the O&M on these assets? How are we going to be good stewards of the land and good neighbors, because these weeds are going to get over the neighbors' crops? And I hear about this payment, for the water, but I hear nothing going back to this landowner. This tenant farmer. If he goes back and he maintains those ditches, and he keeps the salt and cedars from growing back up the way it was before, there's no revenue flow for that.
There are provisions in the following agreements that the landowner has to keep the weeds down, those kind of things. So we will have to spend some money to, like you say, be good stewards of that property. But again, since they have the lease, we will have to work with them, and they'll request it.
Can we enter into some type of agreement with them for them to maintain that?
Well, that's part of the reason why we want to keep them leased, so that they are the ones that are on that property and tell us as a landowner, I need to do this, and you need to pay for it. So that's the process that we're going to use.
I saw before we pushed to get this land, we had the underrun, so we started pushing to get these lands farmed and get them back in shape. I saw the condition, and it was less than attractive. I sure don't want to see it return to that.
Jim, I saw one place up there where they actually bypassed the head ditch and built their own dirt head ditch because they couldn't use the old head ditch. So I understand.
Yeah, what my concern is.
Yeah, but again, it's better for them to be on the property so that they can watch it and tell us, we need to do this and we need to do that. And since we're the landowner, we of course are responsible for those costs.
I would sure like for us to get past this fouling as quick as possible, because it is so regional, so concentrated in one area. We're really doing damage to that area.
Jesse, isn't the trust lands 55% in the north end and 45% in the south end?
I'm not sure if it's just the trust lands. I know that's the whole fallowing proportion.
That's what I meant.
But I'm not sure specifically to the western farmlands or not.
But that part that we're talking about here, okay, we're not talking about western farmland. We're talking about people that are getting $125 an acre foot up to, what, $750 an acre, and these tenant farms are getting zero.
Right. And I don't know, John Pierre, that for these particular lands, I don't know that distribution. I'll have to get it separately.
I think the fallowing is 45
55,
south
45,
and 55 north, right, for the fallowing throughout the valley, right. Okay. Anything else, Director Hanks?
No, that's it.
Okay, please vote. All right. Okay, we'll move on to item number 16, acceptance of the audited financial statements for year ended December 31, 2011, provided by Moss Adams. Greg.
Last week, Julie Desimoni, as partner with Moss Adams, presented the draft financial statements or audited statements. And during the discussion of those statements, Director Hanks raised a couple issues, and I wanted to report back on those. One was we made a change to the number of voting members on the Salton Sea Authority for the Torres Martinez Indian Tribe. That was changed to one. I think it was two previously. And though the board members or the board memo says there wasn't another change, there was in fact one. Director Hanks had raised the issue about it was note 18 on the QSA that started off being pretty much a litigation footnote. But, after further consideration, we thought it would be a good idea to include some of the financial information in that footnote that pertains to transfers and environmental mitigation expenses over the next few years. So we've included that information for the years 2011 through 2015. Those are the only changes that we've made from last week. We've got initial approval of these changes from Moss Adams, but they have one further step. They have a quality review step, quality control review that they need to go through. So what I'm asking for the board today is to approve these statements subject to Moss Adams' final approval. And then once that occurs, we can take the draft off and have them issued.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, it's been moved and second. Any discussion? Hey, please vote. Thank you. Thanks, Greg. We'll move on to item number 17, accept the red line version of the final financing documents related to the 2012A electrical system refunding revenue bonds. Go ahead, Craig.
What we've been doing is coming back to the board once the bonds have been sold and filling in the blanks. There's always a certain amount of blanks on a preliminary official statement, primarily dates, interest rates, and the bond service or the debt schedule. So those are the main changes that we've put in, and it's just our standard procedure to bring this back to the board so that they can see those changes.
I move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, please vote. All right, thank you. We'll move on to item number 18, acknowledge the receipt of the April 30th, 2012 financial report. Greg, you're up again.
Yes, I would just like to talk about cash this month. I'm on page 132 of the board package. If you look at line item 1, line 1, working capital cash, column D, you'll see that our balance at April is almost a negative $3 million. That amount I expect to go up in May because we have reimbursed ourselves in May for expenditures that we've made on the El Centro Unit 3 repowering project and for the deep well injection. I think that was about $19 million. So what will happen the next month, you see it, all things being equal, the cash level will go up $19 million on line 1, and the cash line item 14, financing energy proceeds, will go down by the same amount. So we're basically moving restricted cash into unrestricted cash.
Okay, any questions?
And then one other thing I'd like to mention on the Energy Department is you'll note line 10, the Balancing Authority Reserve Fund, there's a balance of $4 million. We've been adding about $1 million a year, $1 million a month to that account. In the next couple of board meetings, we'll be bringing a proposal to the board to authorize some expenditures from that fund for transmission projects that have been supporting our balancing authority. But that will probably be the first meeting in July that we'll bring that as information.
Okay.
And then on page 133, the Water Department, you'll note on line 17, there's $150 million of unrestricted cash. It's column D at the end of April. I wanted to give you a little update on where we stood on the debt defeasance. We got the registered holder information from the trustee this past week. I'm working with an investment bank to develop a strategy for paying off all that debt, and I will be coming back to the board the last meeting this month asking for authorization to pay off that debt.
Okay, any questions for Greg? Okay,
I move to acknowledge receipt and accept the financial report for April 30th, 2012.
is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and second. Please vote. All right, thank you. And then the last item, number 19, will be the approval to release the environmental documents covering the Sea Solar South to Drew switching station, a 230 kV transmission line.
Good afternoon, Stephanie Sharp with the Environmental Department. We've prepared the this draft mitigated neg deck and initial study that analyzes the potential environmental impacts associated with the construction of the C-Solar 230 kV transmission line. It will provide a path to interconnect a renewable energy generation source to the proposed Drew substation. And we recommend board approval for the release and distribution of the documents for a 30-day public review and comment period.
Okay, any board comments, questions?
I move to release and distribute the C-Solar South Refuel Station, whatever.
Is there a second?
It's a long title.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, any questions? Okay, please vote. Okay, Stephanie, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that's the next meeting. Kevin, Gloria, when is the next board meeting? We got Thursday's special board meeting at the library at 10.
Well, it sounds to me like you're also planning on having a public portion to Thursday's meeting. If that's correct, you might want to move it here because we don't really have facilities to allow the public in the library.
So Thursday, 10 o'clock here.
Is that, Mr. Kelly?
No, we'll stay in the library, but we will report out that action taken.
If you're going to adopt a resolution, that's public. That's the problem. What we could do is we come here and go over there afterward. You got a problem with just having it here, Kevin?
No, that's fine. We'll come here. I take it back.
10 a.m. here Thursday.
Mr. Garber, don't run any
And then,
surprises.
Gloria, when is the next regular board meeting?
Learn.
What day? 2 weeks? Okay. All right, meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Good.